Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we're looking at a Wednesday night slate here, Nate, before a day off for most for Thanksgiving in the NBA. So it is a pretty full slate here, 12 games for you guys. In this one, we are going to be taking a look at these Pelicans. They are in San Antonio taking on the taken Spurs. Take a look at that game. We got another one up for you and our player prop, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page. We'll be coming at you each and every weekday of this regular season. Also want you to head to thelines.com. That's where we have our great written content up for you guys all season long, and our odds finder tool that you can go ahead and use to make sure you're getting the best juice available on all those NBA bets you are making this season. Nate, let's go ahead and read off those lines and then get into NOLA and the Spurs.
Yeah, we got a full slate here. Sixers pulled off that win against the Nets despite missing most of their stars. They're +4 at Charlotte. Blazers without Dame, +9 at Cleveland. The Timberwolves +1 at the surprise Indiana Pacers. Those Nets on a back-to-back are +2 at Toronto. The Wizards +2 at Miami. Mavericks +4.5 at the Celtics. That opened much higher, closer to +7 for Dallas before people jumped on that. The Kings are +6 at Atlanta. We will break that game down for you in a separate video. Kings just won their 7th straight. Jokic actually returned on Tuesday night for the Nuggets. They're -2 at the Thunder. That's where it opened. Now that Jokic is back, that spread could change indeed. And the Bulls +8 at Bucks. Then we got Pistons +11 at Jazz. Clippers +9 at Warriors. Don't know what to make of those two teams right now. But then we get to this one. Pelicans -6.5 at the Spurs. A Spurs organization that is so competent, so incredible that they can just simply tank better than anyone else in the NBA and look savvy while they're doing it. Lost 10 of their last 11 with a -16 net rating. In their last 5, it has gotten particularly worse with a 126 defensive rating, failing to cover in 4 of those 5 games, getting outscored 124-101 on average. They do come back home now for the first time since they beat the extremely shorthanded Bucks at home. That was the last time they got a win. They're 3-5 at home this season, -6.5 margin, which is exactly where the spread is at. Their defensive rating is 7 points better. But, whatever early fire they had here seems to be wearing off in a hurry. Keldon Johnson has gone ice cold as their number one option, shooting under 28% from 3. The entire team is shooting 28% from 3 in their last 5 here. What do they do well on offense? They still are 3rd in assists per game, classic Spurs ball. Also 3rd in turnovers because they're just giving all these young guys the keys to a sophisticated offense that they don't know how to drive, right? Take your metaphor pick there. And the defense is simply abysmal. It's dead last in points, assists, 3-point percentage. Give it up 5th most paint points, 3rd most fast break points. Those are the types of things the Pelicans would love for you to give up, especially now they have Zion back. He only had to play 23 minutes in his return 2 nights ago because, they're playing the Warriors who benched everybody. So you want to look at how the Pelicans might handle a team that's not going to throw out a great NBA roster. That's how they handle it. They beat the Warriors by 45 points, just absolutely smacked him around. And the last trip to San Antonio when the Spurs, this was last March, the Spurs were like, we're not really interested in this play-in tournament. We're trying to get in the lottery here. And they just weren't going that hard. Well, the Pelicans are happy to oblige them there with a 33-point smackdown, shot 50% from the floor, hit 14 threes, out-rebounded them by 18. And that's without Zion or Brandon Ingram. Who should now both be out there. They just used a big-ass lineup with Jackson Hayes and Joe Val because the Spurs aren't really quick enough right now to take advantage of that on the other side with them playing Pirtle, the old basketball dinosaur. The Pelicans can go as big as they want and should be able to do whatever they want. And that's what they've been doing recently is shooting 40% from 3, hitting 14 threes, shooting 50% from the floor, winning 4 of their last 5 at home, well rested here as they go on their first of a little roadie here that's only in San Antonio. So, I mean, I feel great about them winning here. If you want to tease it with 12 other games on the slate, this is definitely one to think about pairing with the tease because the spread could creep up, and if it's 7 or 8 points, I think maybe you want to tease that back down.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're recording this on what is it, Tuesday night, so things can change. That'll be the theme of both of these videos, but there's still, I think we're offering some pretty, we're aligned, let's say, on the way that we see the script for this game, and it's points for the Pellies. They do have the, I guess you can call it the number one record, if you will, in terms of the highest percentage of their games on the road going over right now, 6-2 to the over as an away team. Do the Pellies go because of the fact that they score a ton more on the road, about 5 more points a game? Their pace on the road is like 5 points higher than at home, 101.5 to 96 or 97 at home. The Spurs, I mean, I guess, you could talk about when, obviously I'm touching on the over here, or at least the total at 232.5, high total. And the Spurs, you need them to come along. They do seem to they do play a little bit better on offense at home, but like not that much. They get a few more free throws. They make one more three-pointer a game. They shoot a better field goal percentage slightly, but it's like all pretty much the same. They're just bad everywhere. They just seem to play a little bit worse defense on the road as they're getting smacked by to the tune of like 13 points. Their plus minus is -13 right now on the road. At home, it's -6.6. Like they're losing these games at home by an average of about 7 points, which is where this is at. I think with the Pellies at full strength, we're back to like, I mean, it was like 5 games into the season. We were talking about the Pellies being like, are they going to end the season as a top 3 team in the West? Sitting at 10-7, they're still like, a top 10 team and top 11 team, let's say, in the NBA right now. And at home and on the road, it's not like their record on the road is 500. But I think in this situation, it feels a little bit short. Like you were saying, I think this spread will get up to closer to almost double digits by the time it's closer to game time. I don't know that there's too much sharp money on the Spurs in this one. As you said, that the tank is on. And to a degree, like maybe we did shoot the gun a little bit with Keldon Johnson, who, as you mentioned, has also regressed a bunch. Whereas at the beginning of the season, we thought maybe he and Devin Vassell were enough offense, with Pirtle in there and a few other guys to be able to at least like have a competent NBA offense. But it's not there. And when you're dead last in a number of key categories on defense, as they are the Spurs, that you're going to need a much better offense than they have to be able to hang with a team like the Pellies, who they're going to continue to get their fast break points. They're going to increase those fast break points. They're going to increase those points in the paint, which are already, middling, if you will, for them. But we know that that's where they like to score when Zion is on the floor. And you look at the on-off numbers for him, even in the short sample size this season, since he's spent a bunch of time on the bench so far in street clothes, but still in that short span of on-off, it's like the identity of their offense is Zion when he's on the floor. He's too magnanimous of a player for that to not be the case. So in this one, all those things considered, I don't think that the down low presence is going to be there for the Spurs. Not that there's too many people that can take a shoulder from Zion and then stop him, but as bad as they are against allowing points in the paint, allowing fast break points and the like for the Spurs, I think this is an opportunity for the Pellies to feast. You can feel pretty good about the spread, and you can also go ahead and take their team total and feel good about that.
Yeah, and the Spurs are bad guarding the mid-range too. So CJ and Brandon Ingram,
and then you go right,
are gonna get whatever they want in that area too. I mean, I'm very reluctant to bet the over, even on the Pelicans total though. Honestly, because the Spurs they were on the road, but their offense just really went in the tank. Some of these numbers are just abysmal. I mean, 101 points per game is pretty much all you need to know. They are now dead last in the NBA in margin overall at -10. And the Pels, like I touched on that they're coming off a 6-game homestand. The first one they lost to Portland, which we kind of called, and then they've really been on fire since, with a 120 offensive rating, 119 points per game, and a +15 net rating. Ingram seem to finally get on track against that shell of a Warriors team. 34 points on 12 for 19 shooting.
Hard not to.
Yeah, and then you got Zion. Going back to that last trip to San Antonio, the Pels had 13 offensive rebounds with that huge lineup, and now you throw Zion in there who's quicker, and they do tend to go over more often. With Zion, I'm just really nervous about the Spurs maintaining consistency on offense. Keldon Johnson is their number one option now. He's in his last 5 against NOLA. He's averaging 16 points per game, shooting 40% from the field and 26% from deep. Both him and DeJounte Murray struggled in that last meeting with the Pels. They then won in New Orleans with DeJounte posting a triple-double, but he ain't around anymore. And there's nobody around that's really going to scare you on this Spurs team. So I think a Pelicans win is what you can bank on. It's just a question of where you can get that spread until you're comfortable putting a large wager on that.
Yeah, if you do feel comfortable about it, yeah, I would feel comfortable with plenty of anything around the spread I'm okay with. I'm still good on their team total. I mean, they just play at such a fast pace, man, like at 101.5.
Yeah, if Zion's out there, 120 is cool, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what their team total sits at, and I feel pretty good about that. The Spurs are going to come along. It's funny, their offensive rating is better on the road, is the Spurs, than at home, and in their last 2, they failed to score 100 points against the Clips and Lakers on the road. So that must mean they're home. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the amount of points they're scoring at home, it's really bad as well. But they're playing fast enough. I mean, they're playing at 102.5 wherever they're playing, at home, on the road. The Spurs are playing. So I just feel like with the possessions that we're getting, the Pellies, they stop you in the right in ways that I think a championship defense stops you. They defend the paint, obviously, and then they are defending the 3. They have a defensive player of the year candidate in Herb Jones. So they can guard you in a variety of ways, but if this Spurs team is going to win, it's going to just be on just going, getting it and going, get it and go, and just blindly go, because you can't stop anybody if you're in transition, just as much as you can't stop anybody if you're in the half court if you're the Spurs. So their best opportunity for victories is just chaos and playing fast, which I think you'll continue to see them do, which bodes well for points, at least for the Pellies, who we know can get the ball in the basket with their possessions that they're getting. So
here we were talking about the Kings and the Hawks, who the Kings early in the season, I mean, you would worry about this spot, the back-to-back, getting pushed down the stretch, almost coughing up a big lead in Memphis on Tuesday night. You would worry about it if it wasn't a team that is just out to prove itself every night, right? Just a young, woebegone franchise that's finally starting to play really well. And Mike Brown's coaching his ass off with this team. De'Aaron Fox has just been unbelievable. And he's going to be able to limit Trae Young on the other end of the floor as well. I mean, +6 is definitely too big of a number here as we look at it on Tuesday night. The Kings just wrapped up that previous win. I don't think you're going to get that by the time this video airs tomorrow morning. I think it's going to be much closer to like +3 if underdogs here. But in that situation, the Kings have been money. 57% cover rate as road dogs since 2020. 56% on a rest disadvantage, and 19-11 against the spread with no rest. So this is exactly the type of thing that a young team will be able to do. They're on a real prove-it stretch right now. They go to Boston on Friday. Then they come home and face the Suns. And look, they've been doing the damn thing against whoever they play. 7 in a row, a 129 offensive rating, pace around 101, best true shooting in the league, and a very poor defensive rating, which is why this total opened at 239, just astronomical total. But as Josh will delve into a little bit more, Hawks at home are not really lighting it up like they were last year. It's kind of the inverse home road splits. And their last 2 games against very competitive defense, great offenses that we thought you would have thought at surface level, like, okay, this is going to be an over. They're going to light it up. The Celtics shut them down in the fourth quarter. Cavs, same thing. I mean, this Hawks crunch time offense, maybe it's just like a little awkward right now with DeJounte and Trey trying to figure out when it's each one's turn to initiate. And the Kings have been really good in clutch time. The exception being that they almost coughed up that lead to Memphis. But prior to that, they were good enough to build the lead in Memphis, which, going into that game, I talked about Memphis had only lost twice in 20 home games, and both were to those Celtics. So the point being, Sacramento is growing up, real fast, and if you can capitalize on an underdog spread for this team right now, I say you take it.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, as I told you when I was looking at this game, I'm like 239.5. Give me that under for sure. Like you said, we're recording this Tuesday night. But like I can't see it dropping that much. Honestly, the way that they almost coughed up the game tonight, I can't see the spread dropping that much either. Those back-to-backs and those, sorry, referencing what you were talking about with them being away dogs since 2020 and having a pretty good, cover percentage there. They're also covering probably some pretty big spreads last year and the year before when they were away dogs against some pretty good teams, but not the same team this year. 6.5 does feel like too much for them. 239.5 is way too much. Like the stuff that I have about, about the reason for an under here, like I'm willing to look this all the way down to like 234.5. And if it's open at 239.5, I just think it's way off. Obviously, this video won't go up quite in time for people to probably get it at 239.5. I think it's going to go down. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but like right now, the home road splits for Atlanta and the road home splits for Sacramento both are just like screaming under if it's going to be in the mid to high 230s. Home for Atlanta, 107.6 defensive rating, 10 points higher almost on the road at 116. They're allowing 113 points per game out at home versus 115 on the road. They're playing at a little bit of a faster pace at home, which is really the reason that like their defensive rating is so much better, but they're still allowing like a decent amount of points per game. But allowing 113 points per game, yes, like the Kings are going to come in and do what they do on offense, bringing one of the best offenses we've seen in the last 7 games. That if that were to last all season, it'd be like the best offense ever. But if you're looking at what their splits and what they do differently, it's score a lot more at home as well. I mean, they're scoring 117.5 on the road versus 124 at home. Let's say that they get that 117 in this game. I don't know. I don't feel like it's going to get all the way up. It's not going to be like a 123, 117 game, in my opinion, with the way that they also play at a slower pace. They shoot 6 percentage points much worse in terms of their true shooting percentage to Sacramento. All the defensive numbers for Atlanta are way better as well. They allow 32% from 3 at home as opposed to 37% on the road. That 3-point percentage is that they're allowing is like top 10 in the NBA everywhere. They shoot 28.5% from 3 at home, do the Hawks, versus 36% on the road. We've talked about this being a little bit of the sort of identity of Trae Young, where he likes to be the villain on the road and has better numbers and better splits on the road as opposed to home, which is odd. Normally, you obviously see the inverse there. They don't score as much. They don't have a lower free throw rate. They don't offensive rebound the ball as well. The things that are going for Sac in this game and why I would feel also comfortable betting on them is that they're scoring a ton of their points in the paint, and that's what they've been doing even more so in their last now 7-game win streak. They've bumped up their amount of points in the paint that they score, going from like 15th in the league to now like 5th in the league, and getting back to that identity that is around Sabonis and Fox getting in the lane and things of that nature. And yeah, so I the fact that Atlanta can't guard what Sacramento does best, and the fact that like I don't know, DeJounte on De'Aaron Fox, fine, but like Huerter's out there, and as KD mentioned in his recent interview on the Boardroom, that his show, the respect that you should have for Kevin Huerter right now is like Klay Thompson level, based on how the percentages that he's shooting from 3, like 57% on catch and shoot threes, for Huerter. So like there's reason to believe in this team and the offense that they're putting together, and there's reason to believe that this backcourt against Atlanta can put up some points, but the pace of the game, the fact that Atlanta plays better on D and worse on O at home, I just feel like if it's like I said, mid to high 230s, I'd love an under here.
And the home road splits are the same thing for the Kings in terms of supporting this. that their defensive rating is 6 points better on the road.
Yeah.
They score 7 points fewer. They shoot 6 percentage points worse from three. Atlanta really struggling from three, like you mentioned recently. So, I mean, it's hard to get to 240 combined if nobody's hitting threes or if we're just not getting that consistently. The Kings are traveling with that defense right now. I mean, they did a great job against Memphis. Ja Morant surprisingly played. He was basically ruled out and then all of a sudden was in there, and they still able to hold Memphis to about 90 points until the final minutes there. Like I said,
Right.
I mean, they have
They tried to give that game away.
yeah, they've shown some youth, and the refs also let Memphis start to mug them because that's what the atmosphere is like in that arena. Atlanta, while they have a good home court, I don't think it's quite the same as the quote grindhouse. But the last four meetings between these teams have gone under. Like to your point, I mean they haven't hit more than 225, I believe. And you have to go back to 2019 when the Kings were just a joke on defense for them to have gone over a total like this or even over 230. With Mike Brown, he's a really good defensive coach. As we know, he's got a scheme in place. They've got depth that I don't think most people realize. Picking guys off the scrap heap like Malik Monk and Trey Lyles too. That if this is a back situation and Sabonis maybe doesn't have that much gas after last night, it's just fine. They've got guys that they can throw in there to limit what Atlanta is trying to do right now, which is get points in the paint and get wide open shots. And the Kings are just not really obliging that. I think they will be able to. I do agree with your under here. I mean, it's kind of the same theory. If you're taking +6, we're taking under. We're expecting a close enough game to feel much better about that side of this one.
Yeah, because with this Kings offense, it's just hard to see them really getting just stifled to the point that that they wouldn't hit anywhere near their total. And then so what I'm saying is Atlanta blowing them out. Even if that's the case, it's not going to be, in my opinion, because they're going off on offense and the Kings just aren't matching them. The Kings are continuing to match everybody on offense and actually lead sort of the aggressive attack. And like you said, this is a young team that every single game this season is going to mean something to them. This is like an NFL schedule, right? They can't afford to give too many guys days off. There's only a certain amount of wins, and they want as many of them as they can. If the Kings get a top 3 seed in the West, man, I don't know, the state of California might take a day off for NBA playoff day and the Kings day, if you will, right now. The hype is real. So hashtag light the beam, if you will. Nate, let's go ahead and kick things off with Wednesday night's first play-a prop.
Yeah, I know the Pelicans have a lot of options now with Zion back and Brandon Ingram back for a while, but cooking now. But I still like CJ McCollum at just 18.5 points. I kind of like the 2.5 threes as well. I mean, you're getting better odds there, slightly plus money at FanDuel for him to hit 3 threes. You look at with Zion, his assists per game drop a lot. But the 3-point percentage is much higher. Same thing with when Ingram's in there. I mean, just obviously they're drawing double teams. They're kicking it out to him. And he's definitely handled the Spurs, even when the Spurs were a good, disciplined defensive team like the last couple of years. In his last 4, averaging 30 points per game, 7 rebounds, 5 assists with a 121 offensive rating, 35% usage rate. That's going to come down, sure, but CJ is an efficient scorer. He's working his way back into shape. He did not start the season in great shape, but in his last 4, he's averaging 21.5, shooting 50% from 3 and hitting over 4 threes. And that includes some really light lifting in their last game against the shorthanded Warriors, the Warriors backups, where he scored 15 in 22 minutes and then took a seat. So the Pelicans are well rested. I don't think the Spurs are going to lay down in the same fashion at home. We do a game video, though, where we talk about the Pelicans -6 or 7 and the possibility of teasing that down or just taking that. I mean, the Spurs are 30th in many defensive categories, but they're a little bit better at home. So the backcourt, since letting DeJounte go, giving up plenty of production, the most points per game to shooting guards and second most assists to point guards. So if you like 6 assists for CJ, I don't hate that either. It's slightly plus money or even, but I think the points and threes are the most reliable.
Yeah, that feels right. Points and threes for CJ tonight. I mean, yeah, the assist could be there. I still really want to see how they kind of play with Zion this season. I think at the beginning of the season, that's kind of what you can expect from CJ. Like you said, fewer assists. I don't know if that's a total correlation yet necessarily, but he's going to get the 3-point shots when Zion's out there. And if Zion's willing to kick at all after he gets into the lane, then I think you can feel pretty good about that. BI also seems to be upping his assists a bit this season, to your point earlier. So CJ, 18.5 is going to be low for him, but that's going to be probably where it is at this point whenever Zion plays. The threes and the assists is what I would really be interested to see in this game. I'm going to go back to the well. Like I said, Nate, Mr. De'Aaron Fox worked out pretty great for us last night as the Kings hung on to beat the Grizz after almost blowing a pretty big lead there at the end. That's something that Mr. Fox will want to clean up as he still remains the best point guard, clutch point guard in the league right now, net rating wise for himself. Total is 241 in this game. I said when we talked about this video last night, it's Wednesday morning now. We shot the Kings and Hawks video on Tuesday night. It was at 239.5. We woke up to it being 241. I said take under 239.5. So you bet I'm taking under 241, but it can still get to like 233 or so, 235 even, and De'Aaron Fox will contribute heavily to that. His first back-to-back so far this season, 26-10. He is 24, as Nate correctly pointed out to me earlier. I thought he might have already been older than that. He's just been in the league for a bit, coming out after his freshman year. Last 5 versus DeJounte, who you expect to be guarding him in this game, at least switching off him and Weitzer, depending on who's hotter in this one. But his last 5 versus DJ, 29 points a game on 33% usage. Obviously, when DJ was doing that damage on the Spurs there, but still a good defensive team, as you kind of talked about in the last pick for the last couple of seasons, were the Spurs before this season when they just completely tanked. So the fact that he's been doing that against them, pretty impressive. It's his. I said he's the number one clutch point guard in the league in terms of that rating. His splits are awesome this year: 56, 38, 85 from the line with a 30% usage rate. Playing on the road helps D Fox as well. We already mentioned that in that Memphis Grizzlies game. 32 points a game in his last 4 on the road with that 30% usage rate. Playing against some pretty good teams. Memphis, not an easy place to play. They had all their defenders in, right? Like, it's not like Desmond Bane was really crushing their defensive scheme because he wasn't in there. They played the Lakers, the Magic, the Dubs all on the road. All tough places to play. Look at the Magic's away record. The Lakers are at least pretty good on defense right now this year, if not awful on offense. And Golden State is playing so much better at home. So all these things for D Fox is like, yeah, against Atlanta, he's had some pretty good numbers. 25.5 points still isn't high enough for our man on a back-to-back.
Yeah, you look at the only times he didn't really get this recently, the absolute blowout of the Nets, a tough matchup against the Cavs, and then a home game against the Warriors where Domantas Sabonis, they were just feeding him because he was dominating down low, 26 points, and I don't think that they're going to have that easy of a time scoring in Atlanta at home down low. So it's going to fall on Fox again, and he's been stepping up in a major way this season. Just the numbers are great across the board. Yeah. If he gets Trae Young on him, that's barbecue chicken. And like you pointed out, he's done just fine against DeJounte Murray as well. So should be a nice back and forth affair there in the backcourt in a game with a ridiculous total. I'm looking at the defensive stats here for Miles Turner, and that's rebounds and steal/blocks. Minus 135 for him to get 3 steals or blocks, which is not great juice, but seems pretty likely since he's averaging about 3 blocks per game in his last 8. The attack on a half a steal per game. Steals are always a bit wonky depending on the situation, but Minnesota turns the ball over. That's for sure. And they're unreliable. They also play at the 4th fastest pace in the league. Indiana's 6th fastest pace. So there's just going to be a lot of possessions here. I think that the double-digit rebounds is definitely likely here. Minnesota, just because of that pace. I mean, they're a good rebounding team, but because of that pace, 4th most rebounds per game. That includes 15 per game to centers. Turner has 14 blocks in his last 4 meetings with Minnesota. So Anthony Edwards and company are going to try to challenge him at the rim. The Pacers basically play funnel defense to say, if you get past us, like good luck scoring on Turner. And then that's either a foul or a block, at least you get the opportunities there. He's done more blocks than fouls with a 104 defensive rating, very impressive, and the highest rebound rate of his career, 26% of available defensive rebounds going to Turner. And that number is 8.5 boards at FanDuel for plus money or 7.5 at other books. just for the rebounds. I'm not touching his points. His usage rate is real low. He's going to be trying to score on Rudy Gobert, but on the other end, I think he will be boarding up and defending.
Yeah, he will. And just as important, he's going to be in the game every second that Rudy Gobert is in the game, right? And so Rudy at about 32 minutes a game this season. And, you know, for Turner, it's closer to about 27. He's missed some time, so they've had to ease him back here and there, whatever. But he's going to get that 32 minutes that Rudy's on the floor. Like, you see Rudy on the floor, you see Miles on the floor. So I think you can bank on that. 17.5 points a game this season for Miles. It's sitting at 15.5. I don't love the matchup. To your point, he is going to be able to draw Rudy out, so those threes might be something for him to hit as well if they're going to make sure that he's not standing too close to the basket on offense too consistently, as they would love to be able to get Rudy out of the lane and get those rebounds. So there's plenty to like about Miles Turner's matchup tonight and the way that he's going to be able to play against Rudy. So I'm with that. I'm going to finish off here with a guy that I kind of wish I would have talked about before yesterday's game. D'Anthony Melton on the Sixers, a guy that is a backup point guard at this point and has been since he came into the league, backup point guard, shooting guard, however, you know, on the Grizzlies. He would come in with Tyus Jones and play a little bit more off ball. Last night played some off ball with Shake Milton, but had the ball in his hands plenty, had a 24.5% usage rate, or last night it was actually 26.5 without Maxey and Harden in his last two games, 24% usage rate, up from 18 on the season. 5.5 three-pointers made per game over his last two, shooting 10 threes a game. So 55.5% over the course of those last two. 20 points, 5 boards, 5 assists. That's all in 34.5 minutes, right? All those minutes going up, the usage going up, obviously, with and he's becoming a starting guard at this point with him and Shake when those two guys are out in terms of Harden and Maxey, and they continue to be as well tonight against a really bad Charlotte defense. Last season without Ja, D'Anthony Melton, he only played one more minute per game when Ja wasn't in there. Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane got a lot of time as well, but when he did get in there without any of those guys, I would add, if you add Bane not to the mix of players that were out last year, for a bit of time, and when D'Anthony Melton came in without him and Ja, he went from 9 points a game to like 19.5 points a game. Went out without Ja alone, and even when Desmond Bane was in there, he still went up 4.5 points a game. When Ja was in there, so all these guys being out, D'Anthony Melton probably would be a starting guard on like 12 to 15 teams in this league right now. He just keeps playing behind a couple of really, really good guards. Charlotte's awful on defense, allowing the 8th most points per game, allowing the 6th most points to opposing point guards as well. So I feel really good about D'Anthony Melton's matchup tonight with this bad Charlotte defense.
Yeah, I think I like him more than Shake. I think I like the threes as much as the points, but it's minus 150 for him to hit 3 because he's been hoisting so many. I mean, Philly, I think, is in a letdown spot here emotionally on a back-to-back after getting that shorthanded win against Brooklyn and Ben Simmons, of course. And I think they might lose here pretty badly, actually. I might look at LaMelo Ball on the other side with Charlotte taking advantage. But the thing is, Tobias Harris was surprisingly active for that Nets game, and maybe he sits because he probably played through some pain to just get that emotional win. So yeah, if you bet that before, and suddenly he's a scratch, then Melton and Milton are going to be getting higher usage, and you'll feel great about that.
Melton and Milton, baby, love that backcourt. And I used to mix those two guys up, so it's really funny they're on the same team. And I just wanted to also mention we didn't boast at all, but we hit the Ben Simmons prop last night. Not only did we hit that 10.5 points, we also hit that double for the man at plus 490 that we told you about. So feeling pretty good about where we're at with props this week. That's all the time we have for you in this one, but make sure to like and subscribe to the page. Continue to follow along with us. We'll be coming back to you guys each and every weekday that there's games. Obviously, we have a little break for Thanksgiving, but until we see you next, happy betting.